Hello, welcome to another training session. Today we're going to be talking about ApBase API. That's the application programming interface. And in a nutshell, this is the library of functions that DevWare uses in order to read and write registers and capture frames from Aptina imaging sensors. So that's what we're going to go through. And enabling customer demo kit software is what it's all about. So the motivation behind this, a while ago we did have one that we called the midlib API. And as this next bullet shows, it was kind of a dumb I/O layer by design. It didn't really have a lot of functions. And as in this next bullet show you, it couldn't really do a lot of stuff automatically. There was also no Python support. And as most of you know now, many of our ini files use Python. And so it wasn't very flexible. It was it had become a little bit stagnant. And also what we found was that we got quite a few requests from our customers to provide more software functionality in this API, and especially our color pipe, the color pipe that DevWare has implemented. And that was the motivation behind creating what we called our next generation, if you will, API, the ApBase API. What is it? ApBase? It's a new applications programming interface for third-party software. Much more powerful than midlib, easier to use. And again, in a nutshell kind of way, all the non-UI software that's in DevWare wrapped in a DLL and exposed for applications to be able to use. So again, the device enumeration, basically being able to see what devices are connected out there, read and write of registers and grabbing of frames. You can run your ini files that include Python and have access to the DevWare Color Pipe. That's the main three areas of what ApBase is all about. Here's another motivational aspect of it. This is what midlib, all the APIs that had to be run in order to do what is much easier to do in ApBase, which is a AP create and load ini file preset. So this is what all the calls you had to do what this basically does in essence in 2 lines of code to run an ini preset. So as you can see, this is much simpler interface. So not only did we add more functionality, but we also hopefully made it a lot simpler from a customer's perspective in doing the normal day-to-day things that they'd like to do in an application. This is a simple protocol stack, if you will, application stack of the architecture. Down here you'll see the camera hardware, and as you'll notice here, midlib is still there because this ApBase is really kind of a wrapper around midlib. It still uses some of the midlib calls, but it also provides the sensor control aspects of what DevWare does, image processing as far as converting raw images into bitmap or JPEG or whatever you like. What we call our common layer and color pipe, which are a set of functionalities to do things like being able to apply the color pipe to your image and also manipulate it in other ways. And then there's the ApBase API layer itself, and that's the programming interface that an application would actually use. The ApBase documentation can be found here on your installation of DevWare, and there's also an external link that's accessible for the same document. And we provide both of these. There will be a time where we transition away from having the documentation inside DevWare so we can make smaller installers. That's the goal of that. And also with this wiki, it'll be a lot easier to search all of our documentation by keyword, and we view that as being a huge boon to our customer base. All right, so that's ApBase. Simplistic in the sense of what an overview looks like, but as you look through the document, you'll see it's quite a bit of API calls available to the user. This next section, what we're going to do is talk about the sample applications that are available. available. There's a command line application and also GUI samples that are available. These are available in under Aptina Imaging /samples. So we're going to go through this. The first line is the first sample we have is a command line sample. It's called Simple Capture. And what Simple Capture does, as its name implies, is a very simple type of functionality using ApBase. It's going to probe for devices, run the demo initialization from the ini file, and generate an I2C log. It prints the device part number that's found and the image format of that. It gets that from the stat file that's done through the enumeration, the probe there, and it grabs a frame and saves it as a raw file. And it also demonstrates some of the hooks that are available. Multi-choice callback, which is available as an ini file prompt command. For example, if you want to prompt the user for which interface they would like to initialize the sensor for. For example, if it's parallel or MIPI. There's a Python print callback, an ini file log callback, and error message callback. So some callbacks that are also available. This is the output of running Simple Capture. It goes through and shows you the usage, shows you where the log file is being stored. And then this is an example, again, like we talked about with the with this sensor, showing the prompt commands, where you can select it, and it's going through and unloading the. In this case, it's the F3111. Excuse me, F311, and going through and then showing you what it's doing as far as loading registers and various other information there, the part number, width and height, output image, and then grabbing a frame and saying that it's done. And the sample code for this is just a list of all the APIs that are being used inside that sample. And again, that's where you can find that sample, Aptina Imaging /samples, Simple Capture. The next sample is Qt GUI sample. Qt is a GUI programming interface, and we are starting to switch a lot of our plugins and also looking at how we can switch a lot of DevWare over to this because it has the advantage of being multi-platform, specifically Windows, Linux, and Apple. And what you do is you write in Qt the GUI interface, and you can recompile for those 3 different targets. And that's the GUI framework that we're talking about there. So this GUI sample code does a few different things than what Simple Capture does. It does the device enumeration, runs the default initialization, so basically goes out and probes for the device, and then shows the image in the main window with color processing enabled. If it's an SoC, obviously the SoC itself or ISP will be doing the processing. If it's a sensor only, it'll be doing it for you. Does simple register dialog, demonstrates register enumeration and a get or set of a register value. And 2 background threads are created to create that live image. There's a camera thread that does the grab frame and another camera thread that does the color pipe. And it demonstrates also register side effects callback. And here's a list of the APIs used with that. And again, that's where you can find that samples under the Simple Qt folder. Besides ApBase API, which is a programming interface, there is a COM interface to ApBase. And for those of you familiar with it, that's a more, if you will, direct interface into ApBase. It is a COM module, and it can be used with any language that supports COM objects. Now, one thing that we do want to point out here is that it is a work in progress, and it doesn't support the entire API yet, but most common functions have been implemented and only works with 32-bit applications, which we didn't mention in the first part, but ApBase API itself does work with 32 and 64-bit applications. A big advantage of using ApBase COM is that it does interface easily with MATLAB. For those MATLAB fans out there, there's an example of what the COM can do for you for MATLAB. And the ApBase COM documentation can be found under Docs, Development Guides, ApBase COM Development Guide, and also there's a link to our external site for that guide as well. And that's the end of our presentation. Again, this is a just an overview of ApBase, the ApBase APIs available in the COM, and strongly encourage you to read those two documents to get a true flavor for the total amount of ability that is built into those, and also those samples, which will get you started directly into the coding effort.